Crinkle Fringe is a fun and versatile accent for all kinds of projects. Our practice project will be a crinkle fringe scarf. Remember, the secret to crinkle fringe is that it must be made of 100% acrylic yarn. Otherwise, it just won't work. While we will machine knit the crinkle fringe on the selvage edges as we knit the scarf, we will also add crinkle fringe on both ends, and that is the focus of this video. For the demonstration, the cast-on end will have closed stitches and the bind-off end will have open stitches taken off on waste yarn. This way you can see both techniques for applying the fringe. Now let's do a quick review of how to knit the crinkle fringe scarf. Refer to my earlier video, How to Machine Knit the Crinkle Fringe Neck Warmer, for additional variations and tips on making crinkle fringe.
Allow 4 needles for crinkle fringe, 5 needles for the left side panel. Push these needles to the work position. Leave 10 out of work for a 3-bar cable, 7 in work for an inside panel, 10 out of work for a second cable, 7 in work for an inside panel, 10 out of work for the third cable, and 5 needles in work for the right side panel. Of course, you need to add 4 more needles in work for the crinkle fringe. All I have to do is do an E-wrap cast on starting on the left and working over to the carriage. Now, when you get to this junction where there's a lot of needles out of work, I just jump over to here, give yourself a little slack, and E-wrap the next section and thread the machine. I also will hang my cast-on comb, and I'm going to make sure that I don't capture the end yarn with the hooks. There we go. It's in place, and that gives us just enough weight. All right, I'm going to crank up my tension to 10 because I want this nice and comfortable, and this is a pretty thick Red Heart yarn. I'm also going to put my carriage in knit in both directions, and my row counter is 0. Now, all I have to do is knit the first row, and hear that chug, 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 chug. It's going to make that noise, but you'll get used to it. Okay, if you want to add a little more weight, go right ahead.
And I'm going to knit until my row counter is 300. See you then!
Okay, that's 300 rows. Remember when I said these 4 needles will be for the crinkle fringe? Now we're going to take the crinkle fringe off. So all I'm doing is popping them off the needles and threading it with waste yarn and just tie a knot. That's enough waste yarn. So we're going to just drop it off at this point. There we go. I'm going to stretch it like so. And then I am going to lay it flat and block the living daylights out of it. And you see how curly that is? That edge is just curling under. We're going to literally kill it with steam. Now you can do this with an iron also, and it doesn't matter if you overdo it. But if you're using an iron, make sure you use a pressing cloth and lots of steam. I even block the strands across the middle here. Now that is pretty well killed. Before we go on to the next step, this needs to be completely dry, and you can see it spit out a little bit of water onto it. We are ready to create the faux cables. You can create cables with the purl side or the knit side of the fabric facing you. You can also start from the cast-on edge or the bind-off edge, or even alternate the direction. Whatever your preference, the cabling technique is all the same. To start, and this is the only part where you have to have some explanation, is insert your hook after the 3rd bar between the 3rd and the 4th bar, because this is a 3-bar stitch. Take your hook and point it off to the cast-on side. Bring it up and just twist it. What that did was that created a 3-bar loop on your hook. Now you just go and pick up under the next 3 bars and pull it through. Under the next 3 bars, pull it through. Under the next 3 bars, and you just keep going. We're up at the end now, and we're down to the last few bars. So I'm going to take 3 here, and I have 3 plus 1. Just group that extra 1 in. Just use your judgment. It doesn't make any big difference. At the end of the column, temporarily pin the last loop of the edge to keep the stitches from running. Okay, so we're going to do the closed end first on our knitting. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to mark the end 4 stitches. Now this is a closed edge, so you don't have to worry so much about picking up and making sure they're secure, but just count off 4 stitches on this end and 4 stitches on this end and mark those places just so that you don't knit up your crinkle fringe. This is where we start with our closed stitches and applying the rest of the crinkle fringe that'll come out on this side. So since we have 4 stitches for crinkle fringe, we're going to pull out 4 needles for the crinkle fringe. Then we're going to pull out 1 or 2 more. I find I've done it with 2, I've done it with 1. I like it with 1 better. I think it's a cleaner look. Once we have established our number of stitches, if you were using 5 stitches for crinkle fringe, you'd pull out 5 plus 1. Okay, now we're going to E-wrap these 5 needles. Thread up our machine. Our tension is still at 10, and on the knit on this machine, I'm going to take my weight and I'm going to just hang it on the E-wrap just to keep it held in place. And the last thing I'm going to do to start is I'm going to go right into that 5th stitch and pick up 2 loops on the edge and put it on the leftmost needle and push it to the back. So all I'm going to do is knit 2 rows. Go to the next stitch on this edge, hang it on the leftmost needle. I'll pull it out to help it along and knit 2 rows. Now, when we get to the latched area, I find the easiest way to do this is to take and put my latch or my eyelet tool right under the end strands and hang that on the end needle and knit 2 rows. Then I take my eyelet tool, insert it right into the center, put it on, knit 2 rows, then go to the other side and pick up those stitches, put it on that end stitch. That's the other side of the latched cable, the faux cable. Knit 2 rows. And you're just going to continue in this fashion all the way to the end. I think I'm going to knit 1 more row. I want to end on my left because I need to bind off this end stitch. Take that out of work. These 4 will be unraveled to make the crinkle fringe. So all I'm going to do is take a short piece of waste yarn, pop these off, knot them off. So we have knotted off that end. And this one has open stitches on it. Now when I latched it up, I also pinned the center of my faux cables so that those don't go unwinding. The 4 end stitches are marked and tied off with scrap yarn. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to that next stitch right there. The other one we're going to pull out 4 needles for the fringe because that's how the width of our fringe, and we're going to pull out 1 extra needle for the joining. Then we're going to do a quick E-wrap, hang our weight, just keep it in place. I'll put a little pin on this so it doesn't come up on us. And we just go right over to the first stitch that's on the waist yarn with the right side of it facing. It could be the knit side. We're just going to hang that on that left needle and knit 2 rows. Go to the next stitch, hang it on the left needle, knit 2 rows. Here's the side before my center, so I'm going to pick those of my faux cable, pick those up, and knit 2 rows. Now, this yarn tends to catch in my brushes, so I'm going to make sure I pull up on it. 1, 2. Okay, now here's my center stitch, and that's why I put a marker on it, because it almost got away from me. I'm going to knit 2 more rows. Then I can take this off now. I don't need that. Pick up these edge stitches and knit 2 rows. Then I'm back to my open stitches. So I want to make sure I get my first open stitch, hang that one, knit 2 rows. Here's the last one. Now, I want to do my 2, but then I still want my carriage on the left. So I'm just going to knit an extra stitch, it's an extra row. It's not going to matter. And the only reason I want it on the left is so that I can bind off that one stitch that will not be unraveled. Okay? So I'm just going to simply pull that yarn through, and we're done. I'm going to bring these out to hold. That puts the stitches behind the latches. And once again, I'm going to take my darning needle threaded with a little bit of scrap yarn and just simply pop these 4 stitches off, just like I did on the other side. And I'm going to tie a knot. As you can see, we have the crinkle fringe knit on the cast off edge where the waist yarn is, and also on the closed cast on edge. It's time to block, but before we do that, we just need to pull out our waist knitting. But we're not taking out the end stitches yet, because we still have to block those. We've just finished blocking, and we let it dry completely. And now it's time to start taking out and making our crinkle fringe. So on the ends, we're just going to snip and pull out our waist yarn. And now we can just run this down. So you get your crinkle fringe on the edges. It's going to take me a couple minutes to pull all this down, but I'll meet you when I'm done.
The only thing left to do is weave in the yarn tails and enjoy this beautiful scarf.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications of upcoming videos and events. Happy machine knitting!